everybody, and welcome to this video. I don't usually do videos on a Saturday, but there has been a lot of conversations that have been going on regarding the Nintendo 64 games that were released on the Switch via the Online Pass earlier this week. That should have been an easy win for Nintendo. After all, putting Nintendo 64 games on the Switch is a good thing, but unfortunately for them, it has become a big controversy, with a lot of people reporting a less than ideal experience while playing. So, for example, there has been a lot of complaints about input lag, making the games less playable than they should be, or at least people remember them being. And there has been also a lot of people sharing videos about an online experience that stutters to the point of being unplayable. I wanted to do this video to share a different perspective, really, because I have had nothing but a good time with this. And while I'm sure those videos are legitimate and the online experience isn't going to be the same for every person who's playing, I have had nothing but a good experience with it. So what you're going to see while I'm talking through this video is footage of the multiplayer at work. We got a couple of people from the digitally downloaded .NET team together for a solid couple of hours multiplayer session last night. And in that time, and it was quite a few hours that we played, where we played every single game that had a multiplayer component on the library, in that time we had one match once that was disrupted by a poor internet connection. And I'm not sure if that was the Nintendo Online service, whether that was a Friday night and everyone being online, it was a kind of peak hour to be playing, or it was just Nintendo Australia's internet infrastructure, which is just not very good. Whatever the cause was for that one blip, the rest of the experience has been nothing but an absolute pleasure. So I wanted to do this video to share a different perspective about this N64 collection, because I actually think it's really good and I've had a really good time with it already. So I have a really strong nostalgia for the Nintendo 64 because it was really the perfect console for me for my lifestyle at the time. I grew up with two brothers and a neighbor who was a close friend, which meant there were four of us that enjoyed playing games together. And while we had a Super Nintendo beforehand, and it had a lot of excellent multiplayer games, those games were really capped out at two players for the most part, which meant that we had to share controllers around, and it just wasn't as engaging as an experience when the four of us were in the room together. Come the Nintendo 64, it had 4-player built into it, and it had a lot of games that were built around that 4-player experience. So it became very much like a hobby and a lifestyle thing for us. We'd come home on a Friday night, we would play from school, we would play games deep into the night, and then across the Saturday and Sunday of our weekend as well. It was a lifestyle hobby thing, and it was the first time that a console really hooked its claws into me. I enjoyed the Super Nintendo, I had a Game Boy and I enjoyed that a great deal as well, but the Nintendo 64 was the first time I had that kind of TV experience that I just really got into and loved. But we very rarely finished the single player games with any of these things. Ocarina of Time was one of the exceptions, but for the most part, it was just a multiplayer console for us. And that was something that I thought I would never have again, to be honest. The Nintendo 64 itself is long gone. I don't know where that is anymore. Obviously, the games have gone with it. And just generally, everybody's moved on. One of my brothers lives at the other end of the state. Another one of my brothers is elsewhere. The friend is another place. We're all separated now. And the multiplayer experience, we haven't been able to get together for a multiplayer experience like that for many years at this point. So I thought that the kind of local multiplayer experience that the Nintendo 64 offered in particular was something that I was never going to experience again. But then the expansion pack comes along, and I download it and I start to play around with the single player stuff, which I had a great deal of fun with earlier in the week. But on Friday night, we decided to get some of the digitally downloaded .NET crew together to play some of the multiplayer and just test that out and see what it was like. And it immediately hit me just how much it was exactly like my memories of growing up. That's how strong the nostalgia was. So take WinBack as an example. Now, WinBack is not the best known game in the collection. You look at what people are talking about, it's Mario 64, it's Ocarina of Time, and it's Mario Kart for multiplayer. That's where people land when they first get into this collection. But WinBack has the most amazing multiplayer experience, and it is for all the reasons that I don't really enjoy modern shooters that I can really enjoy the WinBack multiplayer. So you look at a modern shooter, And they have all those experience bars that encourage the grind. They have massive, expansive maps. They have dozens and dozens of people running around, and the action is designed to be quite deadly. You know, you take a couple of shots and it's kind of game over and all that stuff. And WinBack, by contrast, is small, self-contained levels with split screen, so you can screen sheet, which is part of the fun of it, and it doesn't really matter if you do because there's nowhere to hide the levels are that small. The action is fast and furious. It's over in a couple of minutes, with a standard match being 3 minutes in length at most. And there's only 4 people. It's a maximum of 4 people that can play this. All of these are actually good things for the game. It's smooth, it's streamlined, it's easy to play, it's accessible, it's enjoyable, and you just keep playing match after match after match after match. I never thought that I would get a chance to play WinBack again. I spent a lot of time playing it as a kid, but I thought that experience was kind of lost to me. So the fact that I've been able to do that again has been, like I said at the start of the video, a massive nostalgia rush, like a huge one, something that I'm genuinely feeling grateful for, because it was my childhood, and it's just one of those things that you don't expect to get a chance to do again. The fact that I was able to have a smooth online experience helped, of course. So those videos that you would have seen of people having bad frame rates and internet connections crapping out on them, I think those are genuine videos. They're obviously not doctored, but I was able to play under optimal conditions. The 2 other people that I was playing with from the DDNet team, they're also located in Australia, and I do think that the ping rates in particular will affect the online experience. So for example, if I was to try and play with another person on the DDNet team in England, we would probably have a different experience. But if you can get the optimal experience together, if you can get the right conditions, then you are going to have a good time with this. And that is a major, major benefit to subscribing to this Nintendo 64 collection. The other thing that I realized is just how well these games hold up. The Nintendo 64 didn't have a lot of games on it, but the games that it did have tended to be really, really good. So I've talked about WinBack at length already, but Mario Kart, for example, is a really good game still. Mario Kart 64 is incredibly playable, has excellent tracks, has a good range of characters, good personality, and a really good 4-player split screen experience. We also played Lilac Wars. Well, it was called Lilac Wars in Australia, Star Fox 64. Star Fox 64 has a multiplayer mode as well that is dogfighting in a very arcade way, but it was a lot of fun. It was a game that as a kid we didn't play that much because we had so many other games to play, but just playing through a couple of matches last night, I was reminded that this was actually really good. I'm not the world's biggest fan of the single player in Star Fox games. That kind of shooting action doesn't really do well for me, but the multiplayer was a lot of fun, and that was an experience I'd almost forgotten. But again, I had that rush of nostalgia when I played it that just reminded me that I really enjoyed it. Mario Tennis is another really good example, and in playing it in multiplayer, I was reminded why I think that it is the best Mario Tennis of them all. You look at the more modern Mario Tennis titles, and they're all power-up spamathons, where you just use the power-ups, build them up, and use them as quickly as possible until one or the other player falls over. The original Mario Tennis didn't have any of that, and while it was certainly an arcadey take on tennis, it played like a tennis game. You needed to hit your shots like tennis players. You needed to find the angles like tennis players. You would win points as you would in tennis. When I played Mario Tennis in single player earlier in the week, I thought that the game was certainly enjoyable, but there was limitations in terms of how much content I would get out of it. There was very little in the original Mario Tennis beyond playing matches. And it was only when I played it in multiplayer that I remembered that the actual experience wasn't about progression, it wasn't about story modes, it wasn't about gameplay modes or anything like that. It was about the tennis action, and it was about sharing that with somebody else and enjoying that in multiplayer. So the multiplayer experience of that Mario Tennis title is really, really good. Really, the only game that was a bit of a downer for us was the Dr. Mario one, which I don't think is a great multiplayer experience. I'd never played Dr. Mario beforehand, though. That was one of the N64 games that had missed me by. So this was the first experience I had had with Dr. Mario. I think it will work as a single player, and I'll probably drop in and try and give it a go there later on. But as a multiplayer experience, that one was a bit of a dud. But hey, that's not really a complaint about this service. I think the service as an overall thing is just amazing. And I was genuinely worried going in that all these stories about the online service not working very well would mean that I wasn't going to have a good time with this game session that we'd organised. I didn't have that at all. Other than about 5 seconds across entire hours of play, I had just the best time with this. So yeah, I think it's great. So anyway, that's enough for this video. Do let me know your own thoughts in the comments if you've been playing with the N64 games, especially if you've been playing online. Has your experience been more like mine or some of the other people that have found the lag and ping rates and whatever to make it unplayable? I'd be really interested in knowing. Other than that, let me know your favourite N64 games. What would you like to see on the service from now? For me personally, I'm really hoping Bomberman 64 comes. It wasn't a great single-player game by any means. I don't think I ever even finished it. But as a multiplayer thing, that 3D Bomberman game was just really enjoyable. So that's my hope, that we see that one on its way. But yeah, do let me know your own thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video, please do mash that like and subscribe button. That way you won't miss one as I upload them. And if you want to support what we're doing at digitallydownloaded.net, then please do consider backing us on Patreon. You can do that for $1 a month, or more if you're feeling generous, but $1 a month to entry level. And in doing so, you're supporting this YouTube channel as well as what we do on digitallydownloaded.net. And you'll also get a monthly magazine into the bargain. That is a Patreon backer exclusive. It's a 48-page magazine that really looks at the culture behind the Japanese games that we play. So we talk about art and history and film and music and everything else to do with Japanese culture. That way you kind of get a sense of the background to these games that we love to play. It's a pretty good magazine, I do say so myself, so it would be very much appreciated if you back me, and you'll also get that magazine in the process. Alright, thanks very much everybody. Have a great weekend. Play lots of games. We'll see you at the next one.